I'm great, Jimmy. Good to talk to you. Been listening all morning. Great to have everybody back.
All back. We're all here, and let's just dive right in. Steve, have you been to D.C. for an inauguration? I've been to a couple of them, and they're fantastic events, and a lot of pomp, a lot of circumstance. And just give me your thoughts. What are we watching happen in America?
I've never been to one. I only lasted at the National Republican Convention in 2004 when I had a seat down in the. I only lasted 2 days. I couldn't take it. so I'm not much for just people talking and talking and talking. But I'm sure it's a lot of fun for people, and a lot of things have happened we've changed this thing over time. This has always been a great way to see America in many respects. It's a very sad day because what's about to happen is not going to be good for the American worker, or the American economy, or the long-term strength of America. But it's happened, and it's happened for a number of reasons you and I have talked about.
Let's talk about what you think is about to happen in America. I know there's a lot of news stories out there. You've got Janet Yellen yesterday talking about how much they need to spend, and the economy. Republicans now are going to go back and they're going to start talking about, we're worried about the deficit. And I'm like, well, where the hell have you been the last several years? But nevertheless, Janet Yellen yesterday said there's no time right now to be worried about the deficit or spending. We have to spend our way to prosperity. Give me your thoughts on what we watched with Yellen yesterday.
Yeah, Yellen is a political prostitute, and when she worked for Clinton and they were trying to balance the budget, she said that was important. And when she was the head of the Fed and doing the bidding of others, she spent and spent and spent, increased the Fed's balance sheet. Now as the Secretary of the Treasurer, somehow, by the way, I just want everybody to understand this. The Secretary of the Treasurer why would they be in charge of spending? The Secretary of the Treasurer is supposed to keep track of the bonds that we have, right? So why would their opinion be anything about spending and not spending? Can't they just keep track of the bonds? But no. Since Paulson and George Bush put them in front of the camera in 2008, and he told you about all the money they had to spend then, even though no one believed it, right? To save the banks, even though Paulson worked for Goldman Sachs and was one of the people getting saved because Goldman Sachs wasn't a bank but became a bank. All Treasury secretaries have to be political people that speak on behalf of whatever policies the president wants in order to keep their job. So this is a mass disgrace, and there's one thing that really makes all these people who speak like this political prostitutes. It is nothing more there's nothing that economists agree upon more than the effects of the minimum wage, Jimmy. So when President Biden puts forth a $15 million national minimum wage, all economists, all textbooks show a supply and demand graph where price and quantity equal. Then you raise artificially and you cause unemployment. If the Republican Party wants to start keeping Trump supporters, who are generally, the new group, who are generally lower middle class people in many respects, as far as income, not in the eyes of God, but as far as income, they will talk about minimum wage raised to $15 as a racist policy, which it truly is. Young people getting out into the workforce in Detroit don't earn $15 an hour. Therefore, they won't be employed and be unemployed and will be causing trouble. People getting out of prison don't earn and can't contribute mostly at $15 an hour. So that causes them not to work. It also causes, every economist agrees, automation. The reason that there are no more quote-unquote soda jerks, look it up if you want, is that they had minimum wage and they put in soda cans and machines. They used to be kids, 9 years old, serving people sodas. So automation will take over even faster with a national minimum wage. Every economist knows it, except yesterday Janet Yellen, who called the effects minimal. But if the Republicans want to be on this and keep, as we discussed a little bit earlier, want to keep some of the Trump people who came over from the Republican Party, they will call this policy racist, and they will pull in young black kids from Detroit, put them on TV, and market it as a racist program, because it absolutely is. Whether they do it or not, I doubt it. These Republicans, really, like you said, really, Donald Trump and his buddies ran up a $3.4 trillion deficit last year, more than twice as much as Obama ever thought of during a recession. And here we are, right? So, by the way, here's the other thing that Republicans should do if they want to keep the Trump voter. China's GDP supposedly grew at 2.3% last year when they started the Chinese virus and gave it to America, and America contracted at 4.3 in 2020. All right, therefore, what did we do about it? President Trump was angry. He did nothing. No one did anything. Yesterday, as he's leaving office, President Trump calls the Uyghurs being oppressed as a genocide. Finally, again, we're a talking nation. We're not a doing nation. President Biden wants to take those voters back who knew exactly that China was the problem. They're the people I made the movie about, Fixing America. They're the people who came over to elect President Trump. And on the margin, they're the people who did not come back because Trump didn't keep his promises on China. He put some tariffs in. The manufacturing jobs never came back to Youngstown, Ohio. They never came back to Scranton, Pennsylvania. He lost. That's the reason. All the other stuff is just talk. If Biden wants to keep them, he'll put 100% tariffs on communist China. He'll build up more nuclear submarines, and he'll order all of, through legislation, and Republicans will have to vote for it, all of the manufacturing prescription drugs to be done in at least North America by 2024. That will win somebody re-election. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know.
The voice is Steve Laffey, SteveLaffey.com, LaffeyLakeyJan20. Steve, so we talk about China, and action has to be taken. I'm not sure President Biden will do that. A lot of folks say that he and his family have a lot of ties, and he's beholden to the communist China. But there's another crisis facing Biden right off of the cuff, is that for the first time in 3.5 years, you have this caravan coming from the South, Venezuela, Honduras, and they're going to march up. And Joe Biden also campaigned that he thinks it's cruel to make people wait in Mexico until they have to cross over. That's going to be a crisis I think President Biden's going to have to deal with, is the optics. If the media covers it of our borders being stormed to the south, that was a message also that 4 years ago got President Trump into the White House, is people wanted the sanctity of our borders as well. And it's going to be interesting if Joe Biden keeps his campaign promises and the media covers it. That's a bad look for President Biden right off the bat.
Yes, and I think that will hurt him greatly if these people are allowed to come. The way to always stop this, since I've been to Guatemala and I've been down to these areas, the way to stop it, of course, is through the Mexican government by literally telling them no imports are coming in from Mexico if these people come across the border. I've been down there. There's a video of me watching people come across the border down in Altar, Mexico, watching drug dealers, watching young women who are going to be raped at the border that night. It's one of the most horrific things I ever did in my life to go down there back in the early 2000s. And the human trafficking of people needs to be stopped. Trump didn't stop it. He did some things about it as far as making people think that they couldn't come. That was good. He did not build the wall. Mexico did not pay for it. We got 400 miles up. It needs to be a lot longer. So this is one other reason he wasn't reelected on the margin. But Biden, I think, will do nothing about it. But the easy way to do it about it is simply call the guy who runs Mexico and say, if they come across the border, nothing comes across the border. If people come across the border, nothing comes across the border. We couldn't care less about you, Mexico. We will shut you down entirely. But because of big corporations, we probably won't do that. And that's really the nexus of keeping the Trump voter. The big corporations are oppressing the little corporations through the shutdowns, through the tax laws, through the ability to get the PPP money. Large corporations, no different really than just before the French Revolution in terms of power. Large, powerful interests like an Apple have no care for the Uyghurs in China. The country is committing mass genocide, and the people who run Apple and Google and Tesla are operating out of there, laughing about it, while millions of people are either disappearing or being in concentration camps. It's unbelievable, the lack of moral will. If President Biden wants to change things, he will slam China so hard, and that party will take back those workers, because the working jobs come back to America like they used to be part of the Democratic Party when my father was alive. They will get the votes back. I doubt they'll do this, but this is the way to win votes and save the world from China.
Is lines of office of President Trump, and the headline that you said says he slams the genocide. He called the imprisonment and the slave labor camps of the Uyghurs, calls it a genocide, which are imprisoned Muslims in the Chinese area. Laffey slammed it, but it seems as if, why wait till the last day of office? Why did this take so long?
Yeah, it's because President Trump didn't keep his promise. I hate to say this to people who love Trump. I mean, they put some tariffs on. They exempted Apple Computer. Does anybody remember this? They put some tariffs on Communist China, and then, of course, focused on French and Canadian tariffs and things that didn't matter at all. And instead of like ordering and having legislation about certain things that need to be made in America to start, and then putting 100% tariffs on it the very first day he was in office, right? And getting legislation to do so, and getting people around the world to agree to it, that would have taken China and would have caused, hopefully, a revolution in China where young men, remember they kill all the women in infanticide, right? The people know this, right? So Apple Computer, the one people are using, is made by a company that seems to be okay with genocide and okay with infanticide, right? And okay with tearing down churches. That Apple Computer is okay with that. Anybody operating out of those countries, Deere Manufacturing, Caterpillar, we can go on all day. Anybody eager to do business in China believes that genocide of 1 million Uyghurs is okay, totally fine. So that's the products you're buying from. And the president no president did, got up in front of the camera like I would and said, I'm wearing a Tard Shelton Made in American shirt. What shirt are you wearing? My suit is made by Hickey Freeman. What suit are you wearing? My car is made by Ford Motor Company, manufactured in Detroit. What car are you driving? Et cetera, et cetera. My tires are made with a B6 on them, manufactured in Alabama. What tires did you put on your car? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All this would have changed things dramatically, but now, as I said in 2011, we were getting behind the 8 ball. We are now so far behind the 8 ball that it would take a massive restructuring, and we can still do it. We can still do it. But there seems to be no will to do it, or no will to even talk about it, so the president saves the genocide of 1 million Uyghurs for the last day. And again, we only talk about it. We don't do anything about it. Would we do anything, Jimmy, about... Go ahead. No, would we do anything about it in Germany in 1941? Oh, that's right, we did. Wait a second, folks. Did we do anything about Pol Pot? Did we buy all our manufacturing goods from Pol Pot? Oh, no, we didn't. But Communist China. By the way, here's the article that's the biggest lie of all time. The new Secretary of State wants to be tough on China policy. Well, good, okay. It's right here in front of me. He says, quote, like they all say now, quote, there was a broad consensus that economic liberalization in China would lead to political liberalization. That did not happen, said Secretary of State to be out of work in America forever. But they say it now like people thought that like it's an excuse. Anybody who thought that should not be in public service and should be retired.
The voice of Steve Laffey. Steve, I want to real quick. We got a couple of minutes left, only a couple of minutes, but we have to. This may be a whole talk radio.
Yeah.
But you sent me a story of a brand new television show. It's going to be a reboot of Walker, Texas Ranger. It has nothing to do with Inauguration Day, China today.
I know.
But it is kind of a possible metaphor of where our country's at. And this show succeeds. I agree with you. We're in deep trouble here because the Walker, Texas Ranger reboot is not going to be anything like the old Chuck Norris show.
No, and I never saw Walker, Texas Ranger was out. Only when my kids got a little older and we finished The Big Valley after Hogan's Heroes did I let them watch Walker, Texas Ranger. And it's a Christian show, right? It's a couple episodes about Indian stuff going on in the air. But anyway, it's a Christian show. There's no moral grayness. The bad guys get kicked in the head and sent to jail very quickly. They keep getting kicked in the head. Nothing seems to happen to them until they like 5 kicks. It's crazy. But anyway, this guy is now the new Walker show is like a vague Christian who doesn't like violence. Now, I would hope, I'm just praying that the show, because of the American people, nobody would watch it. But if it's a really popular show, it shows that America, due to the lack of Christian effect in this country nowadays, and people leaving churches at a quicker rate, there is a moral grayness. Nobody should watch a Walker show that isn't a Christian show.
It's going to be interesting if it succeeds. Walker's going to have to, I guess he's going to maybe send a social worker in to solve the problem rather than kick him in the head like he used to. Steve Laffey.
God bless you, man. So anyway, before you sign off there, Steve Reno. Yes, this is really, like I said this to Jimmy this morning because it was just it's outrageous that someone would come up with something. It's, I guess Walker, whoever was Walker, Texas Ranger, doesn't own the show, I guess, because otherwise he would probably never let this happen. But we'll see if it's a success or not. But this thing about China, if you watch today's paper talks about how the $21 trillion. It's not. This is the public debt. And I've said that when we get past 20 trillion, it's in the movie I made in 2011 with Scully and gang, that once we get past that, it was considered the point of no return. And we got there. And it's partially fault. If you like Donald Trump, it's his fault. If you like Ted Cruz, it's his fault. It's all the Democrats' fault. But playing into their hands and spending the extra $3 trillion and giving the extra $4 trillion to the Federal Reserve this year, that all played into the hands of the point of no return. Anyway, we'll sign off now.